Over the course of the beta test for College Football 26, a few individuals who were lucky enough to get to play the game early through the closed beta leaked online different aspects of what 26 had to offer in comparison to its last year's version. And I know EA isn't necessarily happy about this happening, as this test was supposed to be for testing the cross-platform servers for Dynasty. They had to have known some information was going to get out, but I highly doubt that they thought this amount of stuff would leak. As per usual, there was a lot of mixed reaction online to what information was gleaned from the leaks, but I don't care about gameplay and online stability that much, and I was thoroughly impressed with some of the additions that made it in this year that weren't even so much as glossed over during the initial reveal trailer. And I'm genuinely curious as to why, because these additions just raised my excitement meter by at least 3 levels. They finally scratched off a few of my wish list items, and I know I'm not the only person that feels this way. So here's some of the things that I'm most excited to learn more about, and hopefully we won't have to wait too long, as the next deep dive should be right around the corner. So let's start off with the updated position terminology. They finally got up to speed with using accurate definitions and terminology for what these positions do. From what I've seen, I only saw the defensive stuff being showed off. They have the Mike replacing the middle linebacker, and they have Sam and Will replacing the outside linebacker positions, which Sam is going to be your strong side and your Will is going to be your weak side. And they finally added a proper edge position in the game, which the player that is going to change depending on what scheme you run on defense. And nose tackle and gadget players are also present at the end of the depth chart, and those are listed as what they call specialist positions, because not every team has one of those. And then they show it on the recruiting screen where you can see the outside linebacker tab where you're going to recruit. It contains both Will and Sam backers, which I think is going to be dope that they put them in the same pool. And obviously during position changes, when you go through, you can put a guy where you have the need for him the most, or where you best see his overall and play style fit your scheme. Also, there are now sliders for a lot more things, giving you much more user control over how the game plays. For example, Wear and Tear has sliders for how much each different interaction will affect it, such as like a regular tackle, catching tackles, hit sticks, cut sticks, the sacks, blocks, etc. You can also set how much players recover per play and per timeout in between quarters and at halftime. And there's also an in-game healing reserve pool slider, which I don't know what that means, but I'm interested to see. But I just really like how they gave us the ability to customize it, because when the game first launched, like Wear and Tear had a completely different effect versus like after a few patches. And it basically made like Wear and Tear like almost non-existent. So good stuff on their part, but by putting the control in our hands, essentially, to let the game play how we want to play it. There's also weather sliders in the game for how precipitation affects catching, pass accuracy, strength of your players, broken tackles, and kick power and accuracy in the game too. And that's going to be interesting, seeing how that balances out and plays. So I really want to see what the community comes up with to find like the best balance for how realistic weather is in these games. They also put sliders inside Dynasty for the transfer portal, so you can set the max transfers per team. And there's also a 0 to 100 slider for both user player transfer chance and computer player transfer chance. So if you go in and you realize it's an unrealistic amount of guys transferring, or whether it be too many or not enough guys entering the portal every year, you can go in and set that yourself. Hey, if you want to even turn the transfer portal off, they're giving you the opportunity to do that. So by setting that to 0 for both, which I think is dope. I utilize it, but I know there are a lot of people that don't like the transfer portal in the first place. So they're really giving us the chance to customize our own game, and I'm all for it. I just hope that along with that, they give us a slider for strength of class, to where we can kind of tune how strong a given prospect class is. Maybe we can set it to where you have a stronger quarterback class. Then like in a couple of years, you can say, oh, this class is loaded at running back and corner. that's something these games have desperately needed for a long time. And with what we're getting with the transfer portal sliders, I hope we can see something like that in the near future. Now let's talk about this enhanced player customization. So users can now tweak the quarterback hold styles, the running back stances, and individual position stances, such as how your receiver lines up at the line or how your corner stands in press man. I know there's been some screenshots going around of them having Michael, like the Ashton Genty's famous Michael Myers pose where he's just standing there, which I think is dope that they're just giving us more ways to make each player feel like an individual and unique in comparison to the other players in the game. And also the coaches finally got some love in Dynasty mode, vastly expanding on the 2 options that we had for coach gear in last year's game. Now hopefully they can finally push a patch through that has our coaches wearing headsets, because as of the last trailer that we got, we still have not seen headsets on coaches while they're on the sideline, even though in the Madden trailer you clearly see those coaches wearing headsets. I don't know where the disconnect is with that, but EA, please push that through. It's so immersion breaking, like looking over at the side, like when the camera pans to the sideline to see your coach there standing with no headset on. We also got a myriad of new accessory options, including hanging mouthpieces and single leg sleeves, both of which the community has been requesting for years. So I'm so thankful we got that in the game. Oh, and while it's on my mind, speaking about player customization, and we just came off the topic of sliders, I hope that they either tuned it themselves or are gonna or give us some means of tuning this or changing this ourselves, but like some kind of, how do I say this, it's like let's put it this way, I've noticed there is a huge how you say this, racial inaccuracy when it comes to positions. Like, shout out Cooper DeJean, but I just would notice that like year after year, like all of the top corners in every recruiting class would, not even all of the top corners, even a good majority of them, period, in the recruiting pool will be white guys. Or majority of the running backs coming in would be white guys. But on the flip of that, I would also see like almost no white quarterbacks. I would see a lot of black quarterbacks and almost no white offensive linemen. And all of the punters and kickers would be black. It was just like whatever algorithm that they were using in order to generate these prospects was completely broken. I hope that that's fixed, or they also give us some sort of slider set or tool set to be able to adjust the frequency in which we see specific people at specific positions. Not being biased, it just looks awkward when you can see like a clear pattern, like in a position where it's like I said, there's no white kickers, there's majority white corners, majority white running backs. It just, like I said, it just looks odd. Just either fix it or allow us to fix it. That's all I'm saying. So enough on that. Let's get back to it. Presentation. So I'm really digging all of the enhancements that they made to the lighting system that I've been seeing. As there's very little that they can do to these games to improve on when it comes to graphics. And I really think the best way to get the most out of it is going to be improving the lighting. At this point, it's really going to be lighting, shadows, reflections. And like I said, truth be told, I don't want the college game looking as real as Madden, because they're using player likeness, but it's it's like an AI generated face mimicked off of the real player's portrait. It's not an actual face scan. So I don't really want them to do more in the way of it, because like I said, I think that's taking the focus off of the core gameplay and what we really enjoy in these games. But kudos to EA for delivering on that. Okay, so recruiting logic enhancements. I saw this from a user that goes by view_2 on Reddit that played the beta. It it goes, and I quote, "I simmed a few seasons to check out recruiting progression and noticed a handful of recruits each year, mostly 5-star, will enter a recruiting battle once the final 2 teams are identified. Everything is similar up until weeks 1 through 3. Up until weeks 1 through 3 after the final 3 cutoff. When the recruit drops a team and announces he will select between the final 2, a new screen pops up detailing the race between the final 2 teams. For example, one recruit, the number 1 player in the country, didn't commit until conference championship week. The bar seemed to not move for about 5 to 6 weeks after visit plus hard sales. Recruiting was usually wrapped up by weeks like 5 through 6 and 25. This should push some battles deep into the season." Now I'm excited about this because this actually is going to mimic a lot more of what we see in real life when it comes to these recruiting battles. Now, obviously, there are some guys that know where they want to go, and once they get that offer, they're committing, and there's nothing that you can do to change your mind about it. But the way that this sounds, where it's going to seem like the top guys that really can pretty much like pick and choose wherever they want to go, and they have a couple schools that they're deciding between, they're gonna take their sweet time making that decision. And I love that because that really adds to the immersion of this game. And some more stuff when it comes to quality of life in the dynasty mode, and this is specifically talking about conference realignment. I'm sorry, not realignment, scheduling. So in conferences where there are no divisions, you can select up to 2 opponents to be protected rivals, meaning you will always play that team each year no matter how big the conference. If there are divisions, you can only select 1 protected rival. Now this is huge for me because I really like to play around with custom conferences. In fact, I probably spend more time making custom conferences than I do in recruiting than I do actually playing games. So any additional like tool set type stuff that we get for this is going to be a welcomed addition for me. Now, unfortunately, you cannot choose which week that you play that opponent, which is what I hope for the most out of this. I want to see them take that restriction off. I know it has something to do with how the schedules are generated, but I don't care. This is my little fantasy college football universe. I should be able to make my schedules how I want, and the computer should generate the rest of the schedules based off of what changes I made. So hopefully that's something we can get in the future. But for right now, like I said, this is a much welcome addition for me. So thank you. And lastly, the new archetypes. There are a lot of former household names from the world of college football that I can draw direct parallels to when it comes to some of these new archetypes. Things like Elusive Bruiser bring back memories of how dominant Trent Richardson was at Alabama. There was no truer dual threat, though there were no truer dual threats at quarterback than Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton, and Robert Griffin III. And Percy Harvin was nothing short of electric when operating as the gadget guy while playing in Florida. The more archetypes that they continue to add is going to give us the most variance when it comes to playing styles that we have ever seen in a football game. Between the archetypes and the badges, it will be a long time until you see 2 guys who play alike. And I would take this 100 times, 1,000 times over that stupid X Factor system that they have in Madden. So yeah, keep cranking these out. Every year I would like to see new archetypes added to the game. All in all, I'm very intrigued with what we learned through these leagues, as it looks as though this game is in great hands with the likes of Scott O'Gallagher at the helm. I really appreciate the work that they have done in really taking the feedback that the community has given them and try to deliver beyond those requests. I just hope that now that Scott is heading up Madden, that the community over there can get to start to feel as though their purchase is validated and not just a rehash of the same thing each and every year. It seems as though we could be looking at the best football game that we have seen in over 20 years here very shortly. While I don't believe that will be what 26 is, the signs point in that direction for the future of the franchise. I believe the team is secretly glad that some of this information got out, even though they had to have known it would, as it puts less pressure on them to get their next deep dive out sooner. And if I had to adjust my grade that I gave the game based solely off what I saw in the reveal and now going off what we saw through the beta leaks, I could comfortably give this game a B+ with the possibility of moving into the A's. I don't really think there's much left that can bring I don't really think there's anything that can bring the score down. I really and truly only think it can go up from here. And I feel as though we've seen enough advancement of those features that we got in 25 and new additions to the game that the moniker of this should have been a title update or patch can be shed. While I do feel that that is the case for stuff like formation subs and other features that we had in the past that limit what the player is able to do on the field, these other additions are in line with what we can expect as true upgrades and additions to a yearly release title and then some. And I would love to know what your guys' thoughts are on the beta leaks and what you expect to see from the upcoming deep dives. So please leave those down in the comments. And if you enjoy this type of content, please give the video a like as well. And subscribe to the channel so you don't have to miss out on them in the future. Until next time, stay blessed, y'all. I'm out.